Welcome to the City of Virginia Beach Development Authority monthly meeting for December 20th, 2022. First item on the agenda is public comment, and the floor is open with a 3-minute limit to those who've signed up by calling Elizabeth.
Yes, I'm going to take the number one.
Okay.
And he should be on the phone. I just have to get the conference call.
All right, and these are in the order of sign up.
Yes, ma'am.
Lewis, are you there?
She's unmuted.
Yes. Mr. Hasty, are you there? He did say it was a possibility that he would be unable to join by phone, so if he's not there, we can proceed to
Okay,
that.
and we are having some technical difficulties with the live stream.
Thank you.
Lori Bridges is the second speaker, so we'll go ahead and hear from Lori.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lori Bridges. I have already written to you outlining my extensive experiences in a variety of roles in the special needs community. My most important role is as Caleb's mother. Caleb is here today, and he's actually quite angry with me as I've delayed him in going to his most favorite place in the world, Kellam High School. Kellam is where he bounces into Miss Parker's class, whom he refers to as the princess. It's where he takes an adapted PE class, and he works out on the elliptical machine and plays basketball with students just like him. It's also where he takes a culinary arts class for special education students. This class has actually changed his life. Up until high school, Caleb would only eat about 7 different food items. But after preparing and cooking with his fellow classmates, students just like him, he began to eat all sorts of foods. What all the books I read and tricks I tried in 14 years could not accomplish, Kellam High School accomplished in just 1 semester. Kellam has 1 lunch, which means all the students eat at the exact same time. You can sit wherever you would like, and you can choose whomever you would like to eat with. Caleb always chooses to eat with his classmates at the same table. In fact, when his older brother Josh was at Kellam, he would try to get Caleb to move to his table to eat with the cool seniors. Caleb would never budge. After several attempts, Caleb, after he wouldn't budge, Josh would change his tactics, and he and his friends actually went to go sit at Caleb's table. Caleb immediately put his hands up in protest and said, "No, Josh." You see, Caleb just wanted to eat with his friends, his peers, the people just like him. That's what Caleb chose, and that's what we respected. Caleb asked to go to school every single day. On the weekends when he asks, I'm able to say soon or tomorrow. When he asks in the summertime every single day, I have to change the subject. But as we approach Labor Day, I'm able again to say soon. That's all going to change this June when he graduates. I will never be able to look at Caleb again and say soon or tomorrow. He will not have daily interactions with his peers. He will no longer cook with them, work out with them, or eat lunch with them. But Vanguard Landing is our opportunity to change all of that. When the other students at Kellam graduate, they will go on to college and career, and they will maintain their peer relationships. Caleb and his friends, when they graduate, they come home. The time is now for Vanguard Landing. Vanguard Landing comes to you today with the forbearance requirements currently met, with the Virginia housing financing finalized, with the millions of dollars in cash needed for closing raised, and with the site plan finally approved. Please vote yes today for Caleb and for the other 8,000 special education students. Vote yes for the 300 families that have applied for services in Virginia Beach that are currently waiting. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Jennifer Clement.
Good morning. This is my son, Brendan. I brought him up with me because he probably would make a lot of noise if I was up here and he wasn't. My son is nearly 22 years old. I know he's short and little, but he's very special. I can echo a lot of what Lori said. I also want to speak to the fact that I'm a realist. I'm going to die someday. Everybody's going to die. And the problem is that there is really nothing that I would want to put my son in other than a place like Vanguard Landing that I knew where his future was guaranteed, that I know he would be with peers, that I won't let a state or a city decide where my son is going to live if something, God forbid, should happen to me. I can't leave it, his future, to my other child who is not neurodivergent. She has 3 siblings on the spectrum. I can't leave it up to her, and it's not fair to her. So I need now, while I'm still young and able to find a place that when the time comes, I know he'll be protected and yet still be very involved with the community. That's the goal of Vanguard Landing. And I really am kind of shocked when I start to read some of the detractors against Vanguard Landing, insinuating that it's an institution, which is always a negative connotation. And of course, I would never, after spending his whole life with me, why would I put my son in anything less than what he's used to? Anything less than what is a nurturing environment, a campus-like environment, like my daughter who's going to go to JMU very soon. She gets to go and meet new people, learn new skills, learn new things about life and adult. In a way, Vanguard Landing is a little bit like that for the children, for the young people with special needs. There's lots of models that fit different populations in this country, and for special needs populations, there's not a whole lot, okay? So when something like Vanguard Landing is envisioned, and oh, by the way, there's about 124 of these communities around our country. Some are actually for-profit and some are non-profit. So to have something so special want to be started here in our city, it shouldn't be viewed as something negative. I can't even understand this. So please vote yes to continue the forbearance on the loan for Vanguard Landing. They have done everything they can under the circumstances over the last few years to continue with the loan agreement. And they're so close. And please do not yank this away from people like my son and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Jeannie Cooper.
This is Janine.
Janine, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Good morning, everyone. Mine is going to be a little bit more me looking at the paper, so I apologize. I just want to say my name is Janine Cooper, and I'm a resident of Chesapeake in the great Commonwealth of Virginia, and I'm here in support of Vanguard Landing. I would like to start with a quote from a study that I'm holding in my hands by Madison House Autism Foundation entitled A Place in the World, Fueling Housing and Community Options with Adults, for Adults with Autism and Other Neurodiversities. The quote is, just as housing and support options for seniors have diversified and expanded over the past 50 years, individuals with autism and other intellectual disabilities should be able to access a variety of choices to meet their broad spectrum of support needs and diverse lifestyle preferences. The serious issue of inadequate housing and support for adults with intellectual disabilities spans the borders of cities, states, and countries. Our son, Joshua, is 36 years old, on the autistic spectrum, and currently works at the Coast Guard office building in Portsmouth. We have looked for intentional communities, supportive living options for Joshua when we pass away. Vanguard Landing is the answer to our prayers. I wanted to be on record that Vanguard Landing will include a diverse population with and without intellectual disabilities. Medicaid will be accepted. There will be day and resident programs, employment opportunities on and off campus, and numerous options to live, work, and socialize. At this time, Vanguard Landing has a loan commitment from Virginia Housing, their site plan approval. They have cash equity in the bank required to close on their loan. Josh, our family and friends earnestly request you to vote yes to clear Vanguard Landing from threat of foreclosure, to continue to honor the 2014 loan agreement and allow the annual payments through 2029, agreeing to subordinate the land loan to the Virginia Housing construction loan, which is typical, or accept the new proposed buyout 7 years early at the close of the Virginia Housing loan. I've been a real estate agent for 18 years and can attest to the lack of housing for special needs. I'm keenly aware of other intentional communities, as you are, for those citizens with similar lifestyles, such as housing developments for seniors 55 plus and 62 plus. If you all were real estate agents, it appears that this could potentially be a fair housing issue. As you know, in the Fair Housing Act, the U.S. law defines persons with a disability to mean those individuals with physical and mental impairments which substantially limit one or more person's major life activities. I'm not allowed to discriminate against anyone desiring housing based on many things, including disability. Discrimination is an ugly word. I know the City Council and the VBDA has no intention of discriminating against some of our most amazing, loving community members or their families. Vanguard Landing is going to be the jewel in the crown of Virginia Beach, as former Mayor Will Sessoms stated.
And that's fine.
Okay. Thank you for voting yes for Vanguard. Thank you.
All right, the next speaker I think is on the phone. It's Tanya Milling.
Tanya, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, this is Tanya Melling. Is someone call?
Yes, Tanya, go ahead and speak. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Tanya Melling. I'm the Executive Director of the ARC of Virginia. The ARC of Virginia is the only statewide advocacy organization made up of and led by people with developmental disabilities, their families, and allies. The ARC of Virginia does not provide any direct services and therefore has no vested interest in any residential options. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the thousands of members of our network who oppose the development of housing that segregates people with disabilities from the broader community that already exists for everyone. Things have changed since Vanguard Landing first started, most notably the lawsuit by the Department of Justice that found Virginia in violation of ADA for lacking integrated community services. The investment in Vanguard Landing being considered is a significant one and therefore should receive the appropriate, serious consideration of its long-term viability. Financial sustainability for disability housing is dependent upon the ability to become a licensed Medicaid waiver provider. An unlikely outcome for this model under the federal home and community-based settings rule. While we can't speak for the state, and we do not know the conversations that have taken place directly with Vanguard Landing, here is what we do know. We do know that Virginia's Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, DBHDS, is focused on becoming compliant with the above-mentioned home and community-based settings rule. We do know that DBHDS is also focused on becoming compliant with the Department of Justice settlement agreement that found Virginia in violation of ADA. We do know that a well-known provider in your community, Evanston Services, had to close down a very similar environment and sell a 38-acre property due to their inability to sustain that model under the heightened scrutiny of HCBS settings rules, the process by which large settings are evaluated for their compliance.
30 seconds.
That article can be found in July 2021 Daily Press. Finally, people with developmental disabilities do have options for housing and services that are fully integrated in the community that are appropriate services to help them be successful, including 24-hour care. We urge all investments by localities mirror investments by the state by funding integrated models that help people to live a life like yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Milling. That was right on time. Thank you for your input. Next speaker is John Napolitano.
All right. Good morning. My name is John Napolitano. I'm here to speak in favor of Vanguard Landing. Many of you all know me. Many of y'all probably don't know I have a 34-year-old daughter with disabilities. I was interested in the last speaker who just spoke because, again, stating laws and things like that don't apply to my daughter. They talk about integration. My daughter's not going to be integrated in society. She needs 24-hour care. I'm tired of people telling my wife and I what's best for our daughter, trying to explain to us how she's supposed to live. We, like the other parents here and the other parents whose children will hopefully live one day vibrantly at Vanguard Landing, know what's best for our children. I've been involved with Vanguard since its very beginning. My family is heavily invested in it. I know of other folks that I can't mention their names who are very well-known philanthropists in Virginia Beach who are heavily invested in this because they believe in the idea. This is not an institution. This is a place where these children, grown children, my daughter's 34, will be able to live, work, be social, be vibrant. You know, it's not like we're just going to drop them off at, you know, what used to be called institutions and you never saw them again. But families are going to be able to live, not live with them, but be able to interact with them whenever they want to. I know that later on this morning, as you get to the third item, there is some proposals and things that are on the table. I'll let them explain what those are, but I do encourage you all, don't let Vanguard Landing go away. It's in your hands at this point in time, and we're very close to making this a reality. There's been a lot of setbacks over the years. I'm sure you all know them. We're not going to get into them this morning, but we've overcome all of those, and we're at that point now where you all can make this happen, make this a viable community, not only for the other folks who've spoken this morning, but for my daughter, my family as well. So I encourage you, please, let's make sure Vanguard gets off the ground floor, and let's get this thing built. This is going to be a feather in the cap for Virginia Beach. This is going to be a great thing that everyone's going to be proud of when it's said and done. I thank you all, and I do ask for your support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's the last.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you to all of the speakers. The next item on our agenda is the review and approval of the meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Yes.
And so the chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Got a motion from Mr. Strange and a second.
Second.
Mr. Brunke, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next, we'll hear a review of the financial statements. Sabrina Flowers.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Vice Mayor. And good morning, Councilman Bellucci and board members. I will be presenting the November financials. Operating account summary for November 2022. We have the beginning cash of November 1st, 2022, $3,717,897. Significant cash receipts. The grand total of significant cash receipts is $352,199. And I've itemized those for you. The significant cash disbursements, grand total of significant cash disbursements is $550,410. I've also itemized those items as well. Continuous significant cash disbursements, they're itemized. And the ending cash operating balance as of November the 30th, 2022 is $3,513,552. We continue on to the incentive and the initiative account summary for November 2022. Beginning cash for November 1st, 2022 was $2,905,553. Significant cash receipts, $524 is itemized below. Significant cash disbursements, grand total for significant cash disbursements is $9,634,000. Ending cash as of November 30th, 2022 is $2,890,270. Moving on, we have our EDIP grant summary reporting for November 2022. The beginning BBDA EDIP grant balance is $3,528,553. We had earned interest and the activity announced fees, which gave us $70. EDIP grant expired and closed for this period was $44,516. New grants approved by VBDA for the month of November was $500,000, giving us an EDIP grant ending available balance as of November. End of November was $3,373,139, and I provided a package for you with details of that. Madam Chair, this concludes the financial reporting for November 2022.
Thank you, Katrina. Any questions for Katrina? No questions. All right, thank you very much. We
Thank you,
appreciate
and I wish each of you all a happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, you too. All right, next item on the agenda is a request for approval of a resolution authorizing continued forbearance for the Vanguard Landing loan. Do you want to speak to that first, or do you want John? I think John wants to make a few comments.
I can go for it.
Good
morning.
Good morning, John. Technically, the other folks who signed up to speak for the public, that would be the public comment. So we're just hearing from you because you're counsel.
Understood. Let me introduce the members of the team, and I'll let you know what they're here for. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the authority, and the council people in attendance. My name is John Faber. I'm representing Vanguard Landing. As was previewed for you by the excellent speakers that have appeared so far, we're appearing before you today with some requests concerning the existing forbearance on the 2014 promissory note made by Vanguard Landing payable to the Virginia Beach Development Authority. In support of those requests, we provided a packet last week, which hopefully everyone got and had the chance to review. And the reason I am here with all of these team members is that each of them is qualified to best answer any questions you may have concerning that packet. Ms. Debbie Deere, Executive Director of Vanguard Landing, and our team leader. Doug Brown, who is going to be the Operational Programming Director for Vanguard Landing. Mr. Perdon, you all know, and John Richards and Pauline Kreitzer from Berkadia, the real estate company that negotiated the VHDA loan commitment that we currently have. The requests that we're bringing before you today are two. The first one is that we get an extension of the current forbearance on the 2014 note to the later of 6 months after the date of final site plan approval by the City of Virginia Beach, or December 31, 2023. That will allow us sufficient time to close the loan with VHDA once that final site plan approval is granted. The second request has two parts. The first alternative for your consideration is that Vanguard Landing would like to offer a discounted payout of the 2014 note. So far, Vanguard Landing, through prepayments and timely payments, has paid roughly $614,000 on that note. We propose to pay the difference between that figure and $1,500,000 on the note simultaneously with the closing of the VHDA loan that has been committed. In return, that payment would cancel the outstanding balance of the note, and we would ask VBDA to release the lien of the deed of trust that currently secures that note. That's alternative number one. That is preference number one. If we have our preferences here at Vanguard Landing that we'd ask you to consider. An alternative to that, if that is not acceptable, is that we would ask that VBDA agree to subordinate the deed of trust that secures the 2014 note to the lien of the deed of trust that will secure the Virginia housing note on the terms of a subordination agreement that is reasonably acceptable to the DDA and to VHDA. That, along with restoration of the payment schedule and the maturity date of the 2014 note. As all of you probably know, the payment schedule under the 2014 note was annual principal curtailments in roughly the amount of $115,000 and a balloon in February of 2029. So, second alternative, restoration of that payment schedule and subordination on the basis of an agreement that is reasonably acceptable to you and to BH. With that, I will answer any questions you may have. We will all answer any questions you may have pertaining to those proposals, to where we stand today, where we've been, where we're going.
Thank you. Any questions for John?
So John, the site plan,
Okay. Sorry.
I've got one.
Go ahead.
John, the site plan, it's 6 months you need after site plan's approved.
After final site plan
So
approval.
Virginia Housing's requiring the site plan to be approved to close the loan. Or you just need the 6 months just to get the loan closed, is that what the ask is?
That's right. The final loan amount is determined based on what actually is buildable.
Right.
And we don't know what actually is buildable until the final site plan approval. That and other aspects that flow from final site plan approval to finalize that BH loan.
Alex had a question about the commitment extension is through March of 2023. Is that about when you think the closing will be, or?
That is the bond inclusion date. The bond inclusion date is a target date by which the authority, the housing authority, gathers all the information on a project that is necessary to put that project out for bid in the bond market. Once that bond auction takes place, that establishes the interest rate and allows us to move forward from that point.
So John, in the closing, all the bonds are in March, right? So as long as you have site plan approval and building plans approved?
Yes, we will. Those are two of the primary things that are outstanding before the bond inclusion date.
Right. So then you have 60 days after that to close, or 30 days after that to close?
There is no specific time limit after that to
Once they
close.
sell the bond, you have to close in a certain amount of time.
Well, we do have to close within a certain period of time, and that's why I brought Berkadia up here to answer those kind of questions.
Yeah, how you doing? I'm John Richards. I'm a managing director of Berkadia. It's Pauline Kreitzer, the vice president and senior financial analyst for Berkadia. We procured the loan from Virginia Housing. Virginia Housing, this thing has been vetted at the highest levels of Virginia Housing, all the way up the executive committee, the executive directors. For the last 2+ years, we've been educating Virginia Housing on the viability of the project. They approved it in July, issued a commitment. The commitment contained an October 3rd bond inclusion date, which was a target that we were all shooting for, but that date came and went because we didn't have site plan approval from the city at that point due to delays from the new stormwater management regs that were put in place within the last 2 years. So bond inclusion dates, VH sells tax-exempt and taxable bonds to fund their loans, as John described. And they set their schedule at the beginning of each year. And typically, it's every 60 days, they'll have a taxable offering, and on the off month, they'll have a tax-exempt offering. So until you get to the end of the year, and then October is the last offering, because when you get to year end, it fouls up the markets and pricing could change that wouldn't reflect on their bonds other than just money moving around at year end. So October 3rd was the last bond offering for 2022. We've been throwing around a February date in previous conversations in front of City Council and some other, because last year the first taxable bond offering was February. So we thought, okay, it'll probably be February. Well, we just learned last week that the first taxable bond offering of 2023 is in March. So that's why when the amendment was issued, it has a March date on it. That's the first taxable bond offering for 2023. Taylor, you're right. We'll go ahead and get to that bond inclusion date. That the Vanguard loan will be included in that, and we'll have some 60 days to close within that. It may be we close on March 11th. It may be we close on, you know, March 10th plus 60 days. Thanks. Yep.
And so the requirement under the Berkadia commitment, when did the commitment, the initial commitment, when was that issued?
The initial commitment was issued on July 12th, and it wasn't a Berkadia commitment, it's a Virginia housing commitment. We are just a primary correspondent for Virginia Housing. Virginia Housing has multifamily partners, developers that they do direct business with, such as Franklin Johnson, SL Nussbaum, some of the more prominent multifamily developers here. You recognize the Lawson companies or Lawson Group. But relative to originating loans, they have an approved mortgage banking list. And Berkadia, we are historically been one of the top 1 or 2 Virginia housing originators, you know, for Virginia housing. I think the last couple of years we've done over $500 million with them. We have a very close relationship with them.
And is there an approved developer on this project?
Yes. Yes, all of that, again, everything under that Virginia, everything under the Virginia Housing Commitment has been satisfied with the exception of the licensing, which Doug Brown's going to talk about, and also the final site plan approval. We got a conditional site plan approval, which, you know, the conditions are being satisfied. Virginia Housing has continued, they issued that commitment in July with that October date, but we didn't have site plan approval. I've been in daily contact with Virginia Housing, talking to them about, hey, we don't have the site plan approval from the city yet. And so they were like, the commitment is valid, it remains in place, it's in full force and effect. And so that was fine. Now we knew we had this meeting, we knew that someone was gonna ask, we need to get something in writing. They said, we'll have it for you tomorrow. Boom. That's what that new amendment is. So, you know, this isn't like commitments expired, they don't have the deal, gotta go back to committee. There is absolutely none of that. This deal is the full support of Virginia Housing, all the way up to the executive committee, Susan Dewey, the executive director, Art Bowen, other executive officers. This deal's been fully vetted and underwritten to the highest levels. So to question the, the Virginia Housing commitment, it's solid, and we're moving toward closing. And I will say, Pauline, I can assure you that, you know, we've heard opponents opine that this deal is somehow in violation of Department of Justice rulings on settings for, businesses like this or communities like this due to it, you know, being institutional in nature. And I can assure you, Virginia Housing is not going to commit to tens of millions of dollars to a developer whose repayment from their business plan, it comes from an income stream that violates the law. I mean, they're not going to do it. So this thing has been fully vetted.
But John, it's a taxable bond, right?
Yeah, it's a taxable bond because to be a tax-exempt bond, there would have to be income restrictions.
But that bond allows anyone to live there, right?
Correct.
It's not just...
Right, and that's why we're doing a taxable issue. Even though VTL is a nonprofit, it's a taxable issue because if we were gonna apply for tax exempt, there'd be income restrictions, there'd be restrictions that we don't want because this is an open, intentional community where anyone can live there.
And so as one of your requirements is that there be a zoning endorsement or a zoning opinion that this is appropriate for multifamily housing.
Correct.
Or general multifamily.
Correct.
Madam Chair, before the authority begins deliberation, may I be recognized for just some
Sure.
procedural
Yes,
things?
please,
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Two quick things. One, obviously, on behalf of staff, thanks to the team from Vanguard Landing for coming forward today and presenting two options. One of those is something we certainly vetted and provided to the authority. The second of those, the opportunity for sort of what might be an amended payment agreement, is something that we at the staff level have not had a chance to vet yet. So before you begin your formal deliberation, if that's something that you all wanted us to consider, we would ask for some time and your permission to work specifically with the team at Vanguard Landing and their representatives to understand fully what that deal would mean. Also, we would traditionally in a place like this, we would ask you to give us 2 liaisons. That has traditionally been those liaisons are traditionally officers of the authority, and one of the council representatives that are a liaison to the authority would participate in that conversation with us. That is not what you have to do, but that is our precedent when we are putting together deals like this, or when we're putting together agreements like this, if it's your will. And so we just to quickly sort of, I guess, finish that up, in the event that you were the alternative option that was presented by the team at Vanguard Landing was something you all wanted us to look at. We would welcome the short extension that's requested and the opportunity to work through that deal with you as liaisons and bring that back to you as quickly as possible. And Alex too.
The resolution that staff is recommending is just a 90-day forbearance to give us an opportunity to evaluate the two options.
Understood. All right, Dr. Brown had a quick comment.
Yes, you had mentioned that Virginia Housing Authority had been on board since July, I believe, of 2022. At the last city, or not the last city council meeting, but a couple of city council meetings ago, is the first time that I had ever heard about subordination of the city's loan to Vanguard Landing. Could you explain a little bit about what subordination, why this is necessary, and why we're just hearing about it now at the 11th hour?
I would counter the assertion that it's the 11th hour a little bit. Yeah, I know that the commitment was not provided immediately, but I will say this, that the city of Virginia Beach has now had the commitment for 3 months, which is 1 month longer than Vanguard Landing had it before Councilman Berlucci asked for it. So it's been around for 3 months now. But with respect to your question concerning subordination, the way a development agreement like this ordinarily works is you have a purchase money lender for acquisition of the land, which is the position that VBDA occupies. You also have a construction or development lender, which is the position that VH occupies. The construction or development lender, in lending money for construction, takes a greater risk than the acquisition lender does, and its dollars immediately increase the value of the property because of the improvements that are being built with the money that it has lent. So it takes the greater risk, and it asks, inevitably, the purchase money lender to assume a subordinate position to the construction lender. Usually that involves a subordination agreement between them. It says this loan is subordinate to that loan. Also has other provisions like if there's a default under either loan, the lender whose loan was defaulted will notify the other party and works out some arrangements between them concerning opportunities to cure, what happens in the event of a foreclosure, those type of things. So that is a subordination agreement, and as we've said, one of our alternatives, although not the preferred alternative, is that VBDA would subordinate on the basis of a subordination agreement that is reasonably acceptable to VBDA and to Virginia Housing.
John, I can share the history on how this kind of ebbed and flowed, because again, we've been working on this for the last 3 years, and while this loan was going through preliminary underwriting, and while everyone on our team at Berkadia and everyone at VH was getting educated on what was proposed, initially Virginia Housing was considering including paying off the land loan in our loan. And as they got into looking at the numbers, and as time went by, rates started going up. We all have seen rates go to the moon. And as rates have gone up, it started restricting loan dollars. And so it then became a choice. The Virginia Housing was like, well, shoot, we're losing loan dollars because rates are going up. Let's look at, the land loan. We structure, the majority of deals where there's a land, we just subordinate the loan in place, particularly if it's favorable repayment terms. In this case, 0% interest. So economically, it's a better deal for the borrower. It also gives the project a higher opportunity for success because economically they're not paying a 6 or a 7% rate on the underlying land balance of the land loan. They're paying 0%. And Virginia Housing's thought, because I had conversations with them about this very issue, was, you know, this will be a great story. It shows the support of the city of Virginia Beach by staying in the deal. It doesn't cost them anything. They shouldn't be surprised with subordination because, heck, they give away land for a lot of developments, and there's not additional risk I mean, there is additional risk, but it's nominal, as John just explained. And so they came to the conclusion that the money that they would be paying interest on another $2 million in the overall loan would be better spent allowing Vanguard to build out the project that they'd envisioned. And they viewed it as a win-win, and it's not, you know, some sort of crazy finance scheme to have a land lender subordinate a loan, particularly one that has favorable terms from a municipality that again, makes you guys look good if you stay in the deal and are supportive of the deal. So that's the history of how it came about. It went back and forth, and it wasn't until it went to the final committee that they decided. But that's why.
I think we've got 2 more questions, and then we're probably going to try to wrap up, unless there are other questions.
Regarding the encumbered value of the land itself, is that a value required as part of the equity contribution of Vanguard Landing, or restated, does Vanguard Landing have the equity contribution required without regard to the status of the land?
Yeah, that is a Arcadia question.
Yeah, Vanguard Landing has the cash equity available, and the land is being treated at what it's included in at the appraised value.
As part of the equity?
Yes, but the fact of the matter is, this loan is not leverage. We're going to get in the weeds here. This loan is not leverage constrained. It's debt service constrained. So it almost doesn't make a difference at what value the land is shown as equity, because the income only from the project is going to support only a certain amount of debt. It's not like there's, you know, a ton of excess cash flow after everything is paid, including your loan. You know, because of where rates are. So it is contributed as equity, but it is not, it's not like it's making Vanguard's equity requirement any less, cash equity requirement any less.
So restated, you do not need any form of forgiveness of this loan, any amount, to complete your requirements?
As long as the loan's subordinated, right. I mean.
You need subordination.
Correct.
And I think Taylor had a question.
That was similar to my question. So we would go in second place, and housing would be first, which I agree with you is normal for subordination of land. But I guess I'm trying to follow up on what Bill's question was. If you don't have the subordination of the land, let me rephrase that. If the city doesn't forgive the debt, you have to put an additional $2 million in.
Additional equity.
Yeah, additional equity would be required.
The land has to be either subordinated or free and clear of debt to be included as an equity piece.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So, and thank you all. I think that's very helpful. So, for the benefit of the board members, it was a couple weeks ago now, probably 2 weeks ago, that we first got a copy of the loan commitment and first heard that the Virginia Housing, and it sounds like this is part of making the financing work, was going to be requiring us to subordinate our loan. As you all know, we've got a promissory note that specifically requires us to have a first lien on the property. So, you know, when we after getting Lyndon's audit and discovering that we needed to put a little more focus on this particular loan and the fact that it had been 2 years and the buildings hadn't been built, we were in a position of really because this is taxpayer dollars, having to spend a little more time on this, and that's when the forbearance period started. That was June of 2021. At that point, and since that time, we've extended it. It was a one-year extension. We extended another 6 months, and each time recognizing that we had instructions in place that this be a priority lien, we made it clear that our forbearance was subject to being paid off at the time that Vanguard Landing got construction loan approval. So while you all have been talking about this and figuring out the numbers, we haven't had the benefit since 2 weeks ago of understanding why and how our funding was going to fit in there. And so what I had proposed to Alex and had communicated to Councilmember Henley was that we would go ahead and agree to a 90-day extension. So we're certainly not going to pull the plug now on the project, recognizing that you've gone this far, you've gotten site plan approval. But I think as Taylor indicated, 90 days gives us the opportunity to explore these different options, and there are a couple different ways we can go with this. But we really do need to do our homework and to do our due diligence, just like any lender would, to make sure that we're appropriately safekeeping and making sure that we've got, first and foremost, our obligations as fiduciaries to the taxpayer dollars to make sure we've recognized that. So as Taylor said, as I said, there's a 90-day period we think is sufficient for us to figure out the options. If we end up taking a payoff or we end up agreeing to subordinate, that'll give us sufficient time to make sure that we've got a plan in place and that we've done our homework. Because again, finding about this 2 weeks ago, and the folks sitting around this table haven't had the opportunity to really consider and to think about what's being asked of us. So,
John, does that affect your bond sale?
It's going to prevent us from meeting the March 10 bond inclusion date. 90 days from now, of course, is...
Yeah, so what Taylor, for your benefit, Alex and I met with John and Faber and Napolitano and Deborah Deere, and I think if we take a few weeks to study this, as Taylor said, with a liaison, that we can come back either at or before our January meeting to give us enough time to make a decision.
I don't disagree with them. Virginia Housing has pretty, as well.
Right.
Pretty strict guidelines that you list from here out for the next bond sale.
Yep. And who is the developer that's going to be developing? I know we've talked about the developer. Is it?
Well, there's a developer in Richmond that is being, we're waiting on the final numbers based on the final site plan approval. I'd rather not share their name right now because they are, they've agreed to, pardon? Yeah, they're not under contract. They've agreed to, Virginia Housing has agreed to bifurcate their general contract requirement on this deal in light of everything that's going on with costs going through the roof. And so I'd rather not share that because they're not under contract right now. And we're waiting for the final site plan approval, and that we just got that conditional approval. But well.
So there's no contract amount, there's no signature on the contract, is essentially it. We appreciate your consideration. I'd like to reiterate, though, that time is of the essence as far as we're concerned. The interest rates continue to go up. If we miss the March 10 bond inclusion date, then we're out to, I'm not sure when, based on John's analysis. We're happy to have a dialogue with anybody about the two alternatives that we've presented, preferably the discounted payoff one first. But I cannot emphasize enough that we are now closer than Vanguard Landing has ever been to vertical construction on this property, which was the default declared by this body in the first place. So if that is truly the concern, The best way we can cure that default is to start building by closing on the Virginia housing loan as quickly as possible, and we need your help to do that. So thank you very much. Any further questions?
Nope, I think that's it. For the Development Authority to consider, there is a ordinance before you, or sorry, excuse me, a resolution before you that would authorize a 90-day extension. I know, like I said, all of you are getting this cold, and I think with folks who are on this authority, we can put our heads together, do some quick studying and research, and move this thing forward. Taylor, you said typically we have a liaison, one of our council liaisons, and then a member of the authority.
Yes, ma'am. We welcome two members of the authority as well as a council liaison, if that was your will.
I think that would certainly make sense, and that doesn't have to necessarily be part of the resolution. So to tee up the discussion, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the current resolution.
Make a motion that the authority, excuse me, that the authority hereby approve continued forbearance until March 31st, 2023 with respect to any and all events of default, and qualifying that that's a period of time in which something can be accomplished. It's not deferring any decision for 90 days.
Okay. We've got a second on that motion. Any discussion? Any volunteers?
I'll do it.
Okay, so we've got Taylor. Do you want to say, Bill, stay involved? So we've got our liaisons. Then I'll go ahead and to call the vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion to continue forbearance for 90 days with the understanding that we'll continue to work on this in the interim with the representatives of Vanguard Landing. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. All right, thank you all. Thank you everybody for coming out. Next item on the agenda is a request to terminate an existing contract and rebid a roof replacement for Health and Human Services building. This is Tam.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, and Vice Mayor Wilson, and Councilmember Berlucci. If you recall, exactly 3 months ago, I presented to you the Human Services Roof Restoration Project, and I'm back with a different recommendation. Just to refresh your memories and background information, this is the Human Services building, and the building is owned by VVDA. The City of Virginia Beach Human Services Department is the tenant, and that's the headquarters. We have about $2.4 million that we've collected from the rent, and they're set aside for the maintenance of this facility. You awarded the contract to TST Roofing back in September. The company did some reconstruction work. They did drone scanning and core cuts to determine the damages, and the results revealed that nearly 50% of the roof is wet and needs to be replaced. This is approximately, this will add $325,000 to the project, and if you do the math, this is pretty close to a full roof replacement of that's estimated at $600,000. Therefore, full roof replacement is the best option for the building. And that is our recommendation: terminate the contract with TST Roofing and initiate a new bid process for the full roof replacement.
Just essentially, given the enormous change in scope, we didn't think it was appropriate just to do a change order for the contract. We wanted to rebid to give an opportunity for everyone to participate.
And the new fact that's been discovered is that 50% of the roof is wet.
Exactly, exactly. And it's at the same cost as if we were to replace the roof, so.
So we have to start over, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, any questions? Svetlana?
Assuming there's no issue terminating the contract with MSD Roofing under the circumstances?
No, sir. We have a clause allows it.
All right, so we'll entertain. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to terminate the contract and start a new bid process? Motion for Mr. Strange and a second from Gunter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next item is request for approval to accept appropriation and authorize infrastructure funding at Corporate Landing. Emily.
Good morning, season greetings, Chair, Vice Mayor, Mayor Bellucci. Quick request today. Last Corporate Landing was appropriated in the FY23 budget, $3 million for infrastructure to support economic development in the park. The remaining infrastructure in the park, remaining development available. Construction cost estimates for that infrastructure came in November that were 1.5 million over the 3 million we had available. Last city council meeting, we requested a transfer of an additional 2 million to cover that difference, and was authorized by city council. This infrastructure will support at least 2 new developments. Forbes Candy here and 0 Point here at the southern tip of the park. The infrastructure itself involves the utility lines underneath the future Global Way, the beginning of the roadway, Pond D to support development, and then a sewer extension between Global Way and Corporate Landing Parkway. We request the board's acceptance of this money and authorization to begin work early this spring.
Emily, there's a contract for this already.
We're working out right now.
So these are funds that have been appropriated to us to spend on this.
Correct.
All right. Any questions for Emily?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All in favor of the request, or sorry, motion to request approval to accept the appropriation and then to authorize the infrastructure development at Corporate Landing.
Motion.
A motion from Mr. Parker and a second.
Second.
Competition will go with
Just trying to move this along.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you all. Let's see, administrative information. We've got anything? We've got a presentation from Taylor. We have a presentation.
Yeah.
We're trying to get her in here.
Okay. So we have a last meeting for a long-term employee. In the meantime, though, it's also a first meeting for a brand-new employee. So Kate, if you would stand up. It's Kate Filio, one of New Business Development Rep 1. Kate, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kate Filio. I'm born and raised in Virginia Beach, and I'm working in international business attraction.
Welcome, Kate. Kate came to us from the city of Norfolk. She was working in economic development there. Prior to that, Kate ran a not-for-profit. So welcome to the team. We're glad to have you. With that, I think maybe.
Do we have Olivia?
Nope. Door's open.
Leave it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Open
we have
meeting. Open meetings, very important.
Okay, so
Happy holidays to everybody.
yeah. So I'm sure all of you have had a time to get to know Olivia O'Brien in the 22 years that she's been with our department. Olivia's been a great help and really and also a great certainly in the time that I was in this office every day. Olivia was a great help to me and really exemplified many of the wonderful things that we hope our administrative professionals show sort of as they sort of take on careers in public service. Olivia was recently offered an opportunity to become a director, basically the office manager for the Hampton Roads Alliance, which she has subsequently accepted and where we will miss her. It's a great opportunity for her. We're so proud of what she accomplished for us and what we know that she will accomplish for them, and just want to wish Olivia well as she starts a new adventure with one of our close regional allies. And she's not here today, but I'm sure she'll see.
She's here somewhere.
I'm sure she's watching that on television.
On the record. All right, well, thank you to Olivia, wherever you are. Doing such a great job for us over time. All right, anything else for? Okay. All right, then the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meetings allowed by section 2.2-3711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes: contracts, discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offerers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29. 2, publicly held property, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3. 3, legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7. So we need a motion and a second and a roll call vote.
Motion.
Got a motion and a second. Great, and a roll call vote. Elizabeth.
Dr. William Brown?
Yes.
William Brunke?
Yes.
Taylor Franklin?
Yes.
Lisa Murphy?
Yes.
Ronnie Parker?
Yes.
Joseph Strange?
Yes.
Gunther Weissenseal?
Yes.
Good job, Elizabeth.